Hello again, everybody. This is Joe Larson, and you're watching the 5-on Racing Show live from New York. Welcome. Hope everybody had a nice holiday weekend, nice long weekend last weekend. No show, obviously, because of the holiday, and the weather was decent for the most part, and this past weekend was nice. A lot of racing got rained out this past weekend with the weather, wow. The Sprint Cup Series ran as well as the Xfinity in Kansas. We'll talk about that in a little while. Some news coming out of NASCAR. We'll also talk about that. Some good stuff going on. The NASCAR Wheel Modified Tour is headed to New Hampshire this weekend. They have their annual All-Star race. I believe it's the third one. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that in a few seconds because, you know, as everybody knows, I go into social media and I read comments, and there were a lot of comments about this All-Star event. Now, when you look at it, now it's Friday, July 15th at the New Hampshire Motor Speedway up in New Hampshire. And they call it the NASCAR Wheel and Modified All-Star Shootout. They can go green at 2:10 p.m. on Friday with a $4,000 to win purse. It's a 35-lap event with 30-minute time limit. And anybody who's ever watched a modified race in New Hampshire knows that some of the guys are right on the edge. Some of those drivers, they're right on the edge because in their heads, and this is just my speculation, Sprint Cup teams are there watching them, looking for the next driver. So they go over and above what they normally will do, and there's a lot of wrecking. Sometimes they don't get past the first lap without a caution. And many times, at least when I worked that series, we would have to stop our race because the trucks or the Xfinity were going live TV. And we would have to impound the cars, cover them up, wait till that race ended, they did their victory lane and all that, and then modifieds would finish. It was a wreck fest. It was a wreck fest many times. I can remember, and one of my first races that I worked as the race director at New Hampshire Motor Speedway, the race ended, it was a nightmare. We had 100 laps of cars on track. But what we also had was 56 or 58 laps of caution. So doing the victory lane thing, I'm up in the tower trying to coordinate my stuff, and I get a message, 26 to the tower. Now, at that level, at the higher levels, you don't say, "This is Joe, talk to me." Everybody had a number. So 26 to the tower. And I knew that was Mike Helton. I knew it. Go ahead, 26. Can you report the hauler after the truck race, or after the Xfinity race? And I said, "Sure." So I go down to the White Castle, as they called it, and the big red truck, whatever people were calling it back then. And I was told to come back Sunday because they need to talk to me. So me being in the thought process that I have, I'm thinking it's all good, we did a nice job, blah, blah, blah. So I hang around all day. Saturday, Sunday morning, I go as directed, and there's NASCAR Managing Director, Dave Hoots, and Mike Helton sitting at this big conference table. And they point to a chair, I sit down, and the first question I'm asked is, "Joe, how many laps of caution did you go?" And I'm like, I believe it was 56. Try 100. No, I went, no, I don't think it was 100. Oh yeah, it was 100. With that, they take the rule book and they put it in front of me, open to a certain page, highlighted. And basically the rule said anytime the yellow flag is above the bar and the starter saying that race is under caution. Now the flag guy all I see is his back. My flag guy at the time is a big guy, and I don't see the flag. So I don't know to tell him to bring the flag from behind the bar. He'd lean over there and he'd have it in his hand like this. So it was, he'd have to grab for caution. So they kept me there for like an hour grilling me about, flag procedures. And then they had a conference call with the flagman, myself, and the series director on Tuesday. And I learned to listen that day. But anyway, long story short, it's a tough place. And not only are the competitors trying to outdo each other to get that recognition, some of the officials on the higher end are trying to show that they're doing their job, and the tech guys are making sure everything's happening, and the race director's running around like a chicken with his head cut off, because at every other race they barely come out of the hauler. And it was always a rest. Then we'd be there to all hours because they have all this technology there and all these very well-educated tech guys from the Sprint Cup Series. And what they would do is we would use their equipment, but we had to wait till their stuff was done. So we'd be there till 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, and we got there at like 5. And they didn't even use our guys to do this stuff. We were just standing there to watch. And it's a tough place to put on a show. It's an awesome race when they're racing, but it's a tough place to put on a show because that's not what the NASCAR, the modified tour, is all about in my book, my opinion. Yeah, it's good that we run those kind of tracks, those venues, Martinsville, Bristol, Richmond when we ran there. Martinsville, they don't go there anymore either. And it's a good opportunity for our teamers. But to treat them as the redheaded stepchildren, and if anybody out there is redheaded, I apologize, but to treat them, the modifies that is, as the redheaded, I mean, we'd be on pit road, then move it out of pit road, then we'd be on pit road, move it here, move it here, move it. And you got to push these things around, and you got to take your pit bulls and all your equipment. And it gets frustrating. It really does. And, if the weather's hot, temperatures flare, and it's just not a good thing. But anyway, the NASCAR Whelen All-Star Shootout will be held there Friday, and their 100-lap event will be held there on Saturday. And here's the drivers that made the shootout. Patrick Emmerling, Doug Coby, Rowan Pennick, Jimmy Blewett, Ryan Preece, Ryan Newman, Donnie Leah, Chase Dowling, Todd Zegedy, Timmy Solomino, J.R. Bertuccio, Bobby Santos, Justin Bonsignor, Eric Goodale, Andy Seiss, Gary Putnam, Ron Silk, Woody Pitkat, Brian Duzat, and Jamie Tomeno. Now, on the social media, where I was started with it, a lot of people say, where did this list come from? How did these guys get picked? Now, originally when they started the shootout, it was done like this. The current or past champions of the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour, the NASCAR Whelen Southern Modified Tour, are automatics. Then the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour, NASCAR Whelen Southern Modified Tour, Rookie of the Year from the previous season. The balance of the field will be filled with drivers with the most wins in NASCAR's modified tours, North and South, from the start of the 2005 season through up to the most current race. Now I'm looking at some of these names. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't see too many past champions on here, and I don't think everybody on this list has wins in the last 10 years. And I also don't think that any of these guys won this race, well, 2 of them in the past, because they're automatically in as well. And that's where the question was lying. Now, here's what I'm thinking. Again, I'm only speculating here. Some of the eligible drivers who are not on this list chose not to participate. Money's tight, sponsorship deals are tight. It's a big paying race, one of their biggest. And why should they tear up a car Friday? Because not a lot of these teams have extra cars later on. Yes, some do. Some have a fleet of cars. Some only have a couple of cars or a handful of cars. They have their short track car, the big track car. They don't have a car that they could chance wrecking on Friday when they're running for the points on Saturday. So now what happens, and again, this is speculation. I couldn't get anybody from NASCAR to call me back to explain this because I'm not in the inn anymore. And I'm thinking what they had to do is now go like the points tiebreaker. All right, let's go to the second place. Who had the most second places and who had the thirds and the fourths? It's going to be an interesting race. Now, the way the race starts out is, like I said, a 35-lap race with a 30-minute time limit. And after 20 laps, they will do a competition yellow. Everybody will pit, can make minor adjustments. Can't change anything, you can't go under the hood, you can't change tires. It's a 4-tire event, that's it. When they go back on the racetrack, positions 1 through 8 will invert. So the 8th place guy goes on the pole, and the 1st place guy goes to 8. They just flip-flop. From 9th back, whatever's left, will then just line up the way they pulled into the pit road. And the no tire change rule, I believe they're going to give bent rims and bouncers. They do sometimes, they don't sometimes. So when you look at that, when you look at how this race is going to pan out, again, there's names on here that you're like, huh? It's going to be the way the people in social media were complaining. There was crew chiefs from some top teams. There were car owners from top teams in social media questioning the teams that are on this list. Now, I'm a fair guy, and everybody should have an opportunity to race. And you know what? Maybe they couldn't get their full field, and NASCAR did what it had to do to fill the field. And if that's what they need to do, not that they need to answer to anybody, but they should explain that so that nobody's complaining, nobody's going in there like with this attitude. And you know what? And I had this conversation with somebody just the other day, and racing is a weird entertainment business, and somebody told that to me early in my racing career. On the official side, all we do is put on a show, and it's the only entertainment industry where the show people pay to participate. Think about that. You go to the circus, the clown at Ringling Brothers and Barnum & Bailey, he doesn't go to the Ringling Brothers and say, all right, I want to pay to be a clown today. The guys who play professional baseball, I'm not thinking, Big Daddy in Boston is going up to the owners of the Boston Red Sox saying, listen, if you want me to hit a home run today, I can do that, but here's $1,000 so I can play today. Football players don't do that. I mean, this is the only entertainment industry where the performers pay to play, perform. Like movie stars, they don't go to the top movie producing companies and say, I want to be in that movie, so here's my $100,000. No, they're paid, flat out. The only promoter that I knew that didn't make drivers pay was, Ben Dodge, of Riverside Park in Massachusetts. He didn't make people pay. I remember one time going there and we went up with a car. We were going to see what we could do, and I was nobody, but there was just 2 of us. It was the driver and me. And we were early. We didn't know what time to get there. So you let us sign in, and you reach your pocket, and how much? How much is it? Oh, no, you're the owner and the driver. You don't pay. You're putting on a show for me. And that's how they do it. That's how Ben Dodge did it. And I'm not saying that's the right way or the wrong way, but somebody has to pay to pay for the show and pay the purses and all that. Those sponsors that sponsor these race events, they don't cover the entire purse. They put some money into the purse, and in many racetracks, the promoters keep most of that money from marketing expenses and billboards and advertising, and just a small amount goes to the drivers. The purse is put up by the racetracks, whether it's a weekly racing series, tour, whatever it may be. It's put up by the racetracks, and being a behind-the-scenes guy, I know that firsthand. And basically these places, what goes through your pit gate in the weekly series is what pays the bills, what pays the purses and insurance and everything else, and what goes through the front gate and concessions, that's the extra. So you got to get people into the place to make money. You got to get people into your areas. And as Mark Garut, president of the Stafford Motor Speedway, said to me, cars in the pits equate to fannies in the seats. And no true words were spoken. Because you have a guy racing. So what does he do? His family's going to come, his friends from work, his neighbors, they're going to come watch. Maybe he has a sponsor and some of those people come. So you think, you figure for every car that's in the pit area, maybe 5 people in the grandstand for that car. Think about it. Think about anybody who's listening or watching and been involved with a race team. Think about how many people from your team are in the pits and how many of those people associate with you in the grandstands. That's how they make their money. But when you look at an event like New Hampshire, I don't know. I don't get entry blanks anymore. It paid a lot of money. It was the highest paying. I can remember at one point it was $14,000 to win, and last place guy, I believe he got like 1,800. And Bob Baer was promoter of that place back then. And I can remember a driver who was a friend of mine who didn't make the show. And Bob Baer called him on Monday, or sent him a letter, sent him a letter thanking him for coming. Hopes he comes to the next event. Oh, and by the way, here's a check for what last place would have paid because I appreciate you coming. I don't think you're going to see a promoter like Bob Baer around. Anyway, we're going to go take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Camping World Truck Series event at Kentucky, and some other things when we come back.
What's up, guys? We're Scared over here, and we're here with Inravio. If they catch you at a show with one of these bracelets, you will win $100.
That's a lot of money.
So get a bracelet.
Do whatever it takes to get that. Hit them up online.
Village Music Shop of Maslin, 1-800-HEY-DUDE, your full-service store with personalized attention, school band instrument rentals and sales, music instruction on all instruments for all styles and age groups, for guitars, drums, amplifiers, PA systems, and accessories. It's Village Music Shop, 1495 Montauk Highway in Mastic. Call 1-800-HEY-DUDE or go to villagemusicshop.com.
Welcome back. Yeah, Bethel fan, I am coming to Bethel Motor Speedway this Saturday to see the show with the Inravio crew, the Inravio van. We have some good things planned for this Saturday from the management and staff of Inravio.com and the 505 on Racing Show. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to a good Saturday. We're going to introduce our producer to racing. It's going to be a first for him, I believe. And, think about racing. Think about when you went and your friends, you brought them or whatever, and you go that first time, either you're hooked or you never want to go back to that place again. I know so many people that just never caught the bug, And I'm glad to see Bethel fan. You will be there as well. Be looking forward to seeing you. And speaking of Bethel, I believe Bethel was rained out. We have no results for Bethel for this Saturday. In fact, there was a lot of tracks in the northeast area, central United States as well, that weather just wreaked havoc with them this past Saturday night. Weather was kind of wacky. I know I had my 40th high school reunion this weekend in Babylon High School in Babylon, Long Island, New York. And Friday night there was a little gathering over at the beach or at the ocean. And it was cold, misty. It never really rained, but it was just miserable. It was like 90s all week here. And Friday night was just not fun. But it was fun to be with all the old folks that not old folks, they're not old, they're my age, from the old days. And Saturday night was our semi-formal dinner, and it was even better seeing people that I haven't seen in a long, long time. It was good. And I was joking around with people. I know this isn't about racing, but you know what? Whatever. When I posted in social media, because I do go on social media, and I do post stuff, and I was looking forward to this 40th reunion, and we graduated in 1976. And I put on there, just think that the people who were celebrating their 40th reunion in 1976 graduated in 1936. And how old we thought they were, because I remember they took a tour of the school and everything, and they were like, well, old people. Now, here it is, fast forward 40 years later, and here we are having our reunion, and we're not old. I don't look old. I mean, I graduated 4 years ago, and it's different. People 50 years ago at a certain age looked old. Us today, we look, we look okay. We look okay. But anyway, before I get into the Campbell Road Truck Series results at Kentucky, I wanted to talk about post-race tech, no matter what level it is. Now, I know in the top three in the Sprint Cup, the Xfinity Series, and the Campbell Road Truck Series, one of the things that Bill France insisted on, that if car 110 won the race and the fans went home and that's who they thought won the race, car 110 won the race. They may not get paid for that, and they may not get the points for that if they fail tech. So what happens is the win stays, the fines are levied, the suspensions, if need be, or points deductions are, instituted. But in the weekly racing series, you have situations where sometimes there's not enough time for tech. Sometimes the motors are too hot to pull apart, and especially if you're one of the last divisions that race at an event. And the thing that upsets me, and I'm not going to say which track, which driver, but I read in the social media about a driver who earlier in the season, now here we are, we're in July, one race is in May. Here it is, he shows up in July, and they decide we're going to check his motor, and it's not right. So what do? They negate those 2 wins. They take the wins away, and I don't know what they did with the money. I guess he has to write a check. I don't know how that went down. And everybody else moved up 1 spot, and I'm sure have to get paid the difference, whatever. Again, I don't know how financial arrangement was made, but what took them so long? At that point, and in all fairness, not only to the team, but to everybody else involved and all the other drivers. I mean, think about the guy who came in second. Oh, you're the winner. It's not the same. I never won a race, so, but I've been involved with cars who have won races, and the excitement and the fury that runs through your body and your heart racing and your fist pumping, you're all excited. Now, 2 months later, they go like, hey, listen, we DQ'd that guy. You won. It's not the same. It's not the same. So they should have let that guy keep that win, or those 2 wins, find him what first place paid, and took the points away. That's what I'm thinking should happen. And it all could have been done quietly. You don't go back 2 months later and say, oh, by the way, your motor's not good. Just like there was another driver in another division at an unnamed racetrack and an unnamed driver who won a race. Now, for those of you who don't know, some of the weekly racing series teams, as well as the top touring teams, series as in Sprint Cup and Xfinity, Campbell World Truck Series, Can-Am Pro Series, East and West, and the Modifieds North and South, seal parts of the car. So they can't be when they're checked. Seal the engines, seal the carburetors, seal the transmissions, seal the ignition boxes. So they can't be played with. So here's a driver who last year went through tech, everything's great, boom, 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 he gets all the seals. He does nothing to his motor over the winter. He shows up and wins his first race of his career. And they pop the seals. They say, you're no good. Now my question is, why was it okay last year and why is it not okay this year? Are they saying that the tech people who were around last year didn't do their job? Or are they saying that the tech guy today is doing a better job? Or better yet, maybe, and I'm not saying this is the case here, but I can tell you what I've seen over the years. Tech Inspector A doesn't like driver of the 101 car. So he's gonna get the fine-tooth comb out, try to find something. Or the driver of the 101 car's owner and the head tech guy bang heads, and this is his way to get him back. I don't know. If you don't think that stuff happens in the weekly racing series, then you're crazy, because it happens. It happens. Games are played, deals are made. When you have, case in point, big sponsor at the racetrack, they're throwing tens of thousands of dollars, sponsoring races, sponsoring weeks, sponsoring cars, all this kind of good stuff. And something happens in tech, and that guy who's writing the check goes into the promoter and says, if you disqualify my car, you'll never see another dime. Now the owners, / promoters then call the head guy in charge, whether they want to call him race director, chief steward, whatever you want to call him, or her. Now he has to get with the tech guy, go in the office, have a private meeting, and then they're on the phone, and you can't disqualify that guy. Now you got to go out there and face the people. And I know that happened to me in a situation where a protest was made, and the protest was within its rights. And the promoters told me to ignore it, give back their protest without doing it. Because that guy's sponsored race nights. And it's stuff like that that kind of takes the fun out of this. It's tough enough to be official with the black and the white and the gray even, but when you have promoters and higher-ups telling you to do this, don't do that, type of thing, it's kind of tough. So, I don't know how everybody else feels about that who's watching this, but think about this. Think about being an owner of a race car. You spend hundreds of thousands of dollars and hours, countless hours making this happen, and somebody has it out for you, and they disqualify you weeks later. Because I think this was the case in a situation, which I'm not going to name names, but I really do think that was the situation. And the other thing I find is officials at any level should not be involved with race cars. They shouldn't own them. They shouldn't work on them. They shouldn't be in the garages with these guys and gals. They need to make a decision whether they want to be officials or they want to be car owners or they want to be sponsors. They got to make a decision, what they want to be. And when you look at that, certain calls sometimes don't get made. Now that's because they know that or their friends are. I know it's like to miss calls. You don't see everything. We don't have supervision where, a little thing is going to beep in our head, a little buzzer. Oh, wait, that guy did this. You can make that. It's how you see it and from the angle you see it in. And I understand that. And I will never, ever put official down for making a judgment call in their judgment. If they say, if I'm a car owner, let's say, and a call is made against my car, why did you make that call? What was the problem? Well, all they have to say to me, in my judgment, is this, and based on that, I made that call. I'll walk away quiet. If they're like, I thought he said, the other guy told me. No, then we're going to have a problem. But anyway, enough on that. Those who are here from Long Island on this show know what I'm talking about, and I'm not sticking up for anybody or putting anybody down, but you don't DQ somebody weeks after the fact, in my opinion. You tell them to make it disappear, and then you also don't tell the guy he's DQ'd for this part this year. Last year, the officials were incompetent, and they said it was okay because that's what they told this driver without saying it when he went to them and says, my motor is still sealed from last year. They approved this. It was okay. It's not something that you hide. They saw it. They said, well, it's a different year. Well, you know what? And what they needed to do was have a drivers meeting and say, guys, gals, whoever, last year's seals are no good, cut them off, we're checking everything, we're fresh. And I don't think they did that. Anyway, just my opinion. I know a lot, that doesn't count for a lot, but you know what? I've been around this business for a long time, and I know the games I played in and around, and some people might tout this as negativity. I'm calling it fact. And if the facts are negative, so be it. But you know what? Let's be fair to everybody, and fair to not only the drivers and the owners and the crews, but to the fans who root for a particular guy or gal. Or for the guy who finished second 2 months ago and all of a sudden he's told he has a win. It's not good. Anyway, the Xfinity Series, no, the Campbell World Truck Series, I forgot, I skipped right past them. Was at Kansas this past weekend. And William Byron, with the win, his fourth victory of the season. John Hunter Nemechek second, and Daniel Hemrick was third. Christopher Bell fourth. Johnny Sutter was fifth. Cameron Haley was sixth. Brendan Jones was seventh. Matt Crafton was eighth. Timothy Peters ninth, and Tyler Reddick was 10th. The poster to Daniel Suarez finished 11th when the checker flag fell. Truck Series, their next event, I believe we're off in New Hampshire. They'll be headed to Eldora. That is an awesome place. I wish I could go see a race there live. Maybe I'll talk to the powers to be at Inravio and see if they could fly me out there to see it in Ohio. Tony Stewart's racetrack. It should be interesting. All right, the Xfinity Series was in Kentucky also. And Kyle Busch from the pole took on the win there with Austin Dillon second, Daniel Suarez third, Eric Jones fourth, Darrell Wallace Jr. was fifth, Elliott Sadler sixth, Todd Dillon seventh, Ryan Blaney was eighth, Brennan Poole was ninth, and rounding out the top 10, Sprint Cup regular Brad Keselowski. In regards to the Xfinity Series, NASCAR is looking to limit tandem drafting in the Xfinity Series in the restricted play tracks, a move implemented in the Sprint Cup Series 2 years ago. After a one-day test at the Daytona International Speedway in Florida on July 2nd, with drivers Daniel Suarez, Ryan Blaney, and Brendan Jones, they're going to reevaluate some of these things. And the three team owners were Joe Gibbs Racing, Team Penske, and Richard Childress. Now they wanted the three guys. Why they picked those three guys? Because those guys have been around and they know their stuff, and they just know their stuff. And the specific changes will be announced when the 2017 rules package is unveiled. The next restricted plate race for the Xfinity cars will not occur until Daytona in 2017. So it's not like there's something they have to change right away, but that tandem drafting, it's just not good. They're going to allow the bumping and all that, a little bump, but they have to give off. Just like in the Sprint Cup, they can't ride around in tandem anymore. And I'll tell you what, I can remember watching Daytona 500s from the 60s and the 70s and even into the 80s. And drivers drove the cars. They were stock showroom cars with very little or no aero. And they had a lot of horsepower, no restrictor plates. And what happened was Bill Elliott went 212 miles an hour, and they decided this is too fast. And we got to do something about that. The Ford Thunderbird was built in the Ford factories on the Ford plant on the assembly line with racing in mind. The old adage, win on Sunday, sell on Monday, and yeah, when you look at that, when you look back at that, it's incredible. It's incredible that now it's pedal to the metal and hold on. It's just hold on. But that's what's going on there, and like I said, the changes will occur in 2017. We're not privy to those as of yet. And what else we got going on? The Xfinity news, yes, Chevrolet is marking its 50th anniversary of Camaros, and in conjunction with that this year, they unveiled last Thursday the 2017 NASCAR Xfinity Series SS Camaro. It's a sharp-looking vehicle, and I'll tell you what, if they keep it the way it looked in the unveiling, it's getting to be where you'll be able to make and tell the difference between the cars without the decals. We're going to take a break, and we come back, we'll talk about the Sprint Cup Series news and some other things going on in the world of racing.
Inravio.com wants you. Inravio provides the best in TV, film post-production, and so much more. And we're growing. Right now, we're looking for a team of pros that can join us. So what are you waiting for? We need show hosts, production crew, marketing gurus, sales experts, audio engineers, lighting, visual effects, and camera crews. We want you. Go to Inravio.com/join the team.
Hey, I'm Raul Panther.
Commander B. Hawkins.
Number well, we're some of the proto men. If we see you without the bracelet, you're punching the. But if you have this bracelet from Inravio.com, you can win $100.
Put one of these on, or else.
For over 60 years, Hanson Carpet has put the customer first, providing only the finest quality products and service. And Hanson Carpet is so much more than just carpet. We also carry a wide selection of window blinds and shades. And our licensed and insured technicians can service any of your flooring or window covering needs. Browse our huge selection of laminate, carpet, linoleum, vinyl, and tile. Stop by our showroom today or visit HansonCarpet.com. No matter what your project, Hanson Carpet has got you covered.
Hey, this is Chris Leslie, and if Inravio.com spots you at an event wearing this bracelet, they will give you $100.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Yes. So some more NASCAR news. What's going on in NASCAR? This one, I guess, this kind of didn't shock me. As ESPN reports, Danica Patrick is being questioned by NASCAR officials for using illegal supplements to keep her, and I quote, perfect figure. Wow. Using supplements. Gives you more energy, keeps your body good. The supplements that she was using, you would need to be a chemist to be able to pronounce them, so I'm not going to go there. But if she is, let me rephrase it, if NASCAR finds that these supplements violate the substance policy, Danica Patrick faces a 1-year suspension. And one of the things that Danica said in this ESPN interview is that she didn't think it was anything that was illegal. It was prescribed by her trainers. Doctors were aware, and she apologizes to her sponsors and fans in the event that the suspension goes through. Now, there's no secret how I feel about substance in our business and racing. And unfortunately, it's a big thing and has been for a long, long time. Think about how our sport evolved. It started from moonshining back in the 40s, even beyond that. Racing's been around, as Chipetti says, when they built the second car. That's when people started racing. Those two guys, I'll beat you to the pier, okay, go. But substance abuse. I've been at racetracks where I know for a fact, let me tell you, I've been to racetracks all over North America, Mexico, Canada, as far west as Oregon, California. I've been all over the place with racing, and you're in the hotels at night and see who's doing what, and then tomorrow that guy's got laser on, he's checking your car. I'm like, holy, what? I left him at the bar at 4 o'clock in the morning. He was hammered, and here it is at 8 o'clock in the morning, and he's measuring your stuff. So, but really, with substance, not only with competitors, and I think competitors at every level, from the weekly series up to the Sprint Cup level, every once in a while, after the drivers' meeting, the guy giving the me should go, you, come this way. Here's a cup. let's go. At random. And don't think because you got away this week, you're not going to be the guy next week again. I worked in an official in a series that an official asked her to go, here's the cup, 4 events in a row. Because they did it at random. And she was a random person, like 4 events in a row. I, on the other hand, I don't know why, I don't know how many years it was a lot. It was like 10 seasons with NASCAR and another 5 or 6 in the weekly series. Never did they hand that to me. Not because I'm, Mr. Milk and cookies, apple pie type of guy, but I don't know. I guess I never displayed it. I don't even drink. But anyway, when these weekly series, you look at some of these officials sometimes at the end of the night, they're hammered. Nobody gets that hammered in 15, 20 minutes from the last check of flag to when they open the gates and let people in the pit area. And I wonder what goes on in some of these tracks. I had officials that were doing stuff under the grandstands in between races years ago. I had officials selling stuff, that had nothing to do with racing. I had officials walking around with a briefcase and people were telling me that their booze was in there. I'm like, you hear all of this stuff, but substance abuse in racing can't be tolerated on any level. Whether there's supplements to give you bigger muscles, whether there's supplements to keep you awake, whether it's illegal stuff, whether it's stuff that nobody heard of, whether it's stuff you made yourself. If this is what Danica Patrick did, and she took these things to make her body look like it does, and the muscle tone that she has, and all this other kind of good stuff, it's illegal. It's in the rule book. These things don't use. And if you are using anything, it needs to go to doctors, needs to go to NASCAR. So NASCAR can send it to the NASCAR doctors in the medical lab to test it. And if they say it's okay, they give it its blessing, then it's okay. But if you don't, see, this is where it looks suspicious in this instance. From my understanding and going through the ESPN interview, she never went to NASCAR and said, this is what I'm taking this, and check it out. She didn't do that. When you don't do that, I'm saying to myself, why wouldn't you? Look, I take a lot of pills, a lot of supplements, and they're all prescribed. And if I was in that position where I had to, if I was racing, I would give them that. Even as an official, I had to write down what medication I was on, the milligrams, who prescribed it, what it was for, on a sheet, on a medical sheet that they told us, this is in case something happens to you, we need to know what you're on, but okay, fine. This substance abuse stuff, it's got to stop. It's getting out of control. It's getting out of hand. It's getting out of hand, and, you see it everywhere. You don't just see it in racing, you see it at work, you see it in the neighborhoods, and it's just not right. It has to end. It has to come to an end somehow. And if you got to take a person, Danica Patrick is one of the most powerful women in sports today. And if they take her down for that, they're sending a big message. And I don't want to be the guy that gets caught after her. There was a lot of guys in NASCAR who got caught, and years ago with the drinking, you drinking. Was that any better, any worse? I don't know. I don't do that. I'm not into that. But I don't think as a driver, I don't want to be racing next to a guy who's high as a kite. As a car runner, I don't want my car out there racing with a guy or a guy who's as high as a kite, because they're going to make the hole that's this big in their head is this big, and they're going to try to fill it and tear some stuff up. And there was a guy when I was running a weekly racetrack. There was a guy that one time he came in, his eyes looked like he was a devil, and I took him for a walk, and I said, "Hey, Soames, listen, why don't you get somebody else to drive your car today?" "No, I'm fine." "No, really, I think you want to have somebody else drive your car." "No, I'm good. All right, listen, here's how it's going to work. You're going to be black flagged on lap 1. So if that's what you want to do, we could do that." And he took my advice and loaded up and he left. And Basically, I didn't tell him he had to go home. He just had to leave the racetrack. And apparently on the way home, he got pulled over. There you go. Now, I don't know if I would have saved his life that night, but maybe I saved somebody else's life or somebody from injury. But this is a big thing. And you know, the old rumor mill, this guy's dealing, this guy's doing it. You know, where there's smoke, there's fire. That's all I'm saying. Where there's smoke, there's fire. So I hope it comes out that Danica's okay with this, but you know, not that she's okay, but she comes out okay with this. But if she doesn't, and NASCAR deems it's an illegal substance that she was taking, it will enhance her ability to race cars. I don't think a 1-year penalty is long enough. You want to play these games, you want to roll the dice, you got caught, go find another thing to do on the weekends. It's just my opinion. Just my opinion. And we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll have the Sprint Cup Series results and a little more of some NASCAR rule changes when we come back.
Village Music Shop of Master, 1-800-HEY-DUDE, your full-service store with personalized attention, school band instrument rentals and sales, music instruction on all instruments for all styles and age groups, for guitars, drums, amplifiers, PA systems, and accessories. It's Village Music Shop, 1495 Montauk Highway in Mastic. Call 1-800-HEY-DUDE or go to villagemusicshop.com.
What's up, guys? It's Scared No Fair. We're here with Inravio. If they catch you at a show with one of these bracelets, you will win $100.
It's a lot of money.
So get a bracelet.
Do whatever it takes to get that. Hit them up online.
Hey, this is Chris Lustig, and if Inravio.com spots you at an event wearing this bracelet, they will give you $100.
The world of advertising has changed. Radio, TV, and newspaper revenues have declined drastically. Why? Because businesses have realized that advertising return on investment isn't what it used to be. So what can we do about it? Well, that's easy. Advertise online. Own a local restaurant, real estate agency, or even a national retail chain? Whatever your business, Inravio can get your message out there. And we can do it at a fraction of the cost. Call today and see the difference for yourself. This isn't TV. This isn't radio. This is Inravio.com.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Hey, before we go into the Sprint Cup Series results in Kentucky, NASCAR made significant rule changes pertaining to Sprint Cup Series races. From now on, if qualifying is rained out or canceled for weather issues, current year team owners' points for both charter and open teams will determine who makes the race. Up until now, practice speeds were used. Also, if an open team makes the chase, that team is guaranteed a starting spot in each of the chase races until they are eliminated. So two significant rule changes, because that qualifying thing, you know, with this new format with charter teams, and it, you know, straight up points, and the non-charter teams don't have enough points to get into these things sometimes. So, you know, they're going to take a look at that, or they did take a look at it and changed it. And I'll tell you what, you know, it used to be that way. It was points, owner points. That's how you determine the starting lineup. And they got away from that. Let's go at practice speeds. What happens when there was no practice? So it seems like NASCAR is heading in the right direction with some of the changes, and it's almost like they're listening to people in the know now instead of sitting in an office and making decisions. And I don't make that as a dig, because it happens in many corporations. The people sitting at the conference room table making decisions for the corporation, we're never in the street, we're never in the trenches, we're never behind the wheel of that truck to make decisions, or a race car. Some of them racing, they never built them, they never raced them, they never wrecked them, they never put them back together to go racing again. And if you've never done all of those things, I don't think you should be making decisions on rules. Be a part of it. Be a part of it. Make your decisions based on the knowledge that you have, not what some committee came and told you. Just my opinion. Anyway, Kentucky. Sprint Cup Series was in Kentucky with Brad Keselowski taking the win there with Carl Edwards second. Ryan Newman was third. Kurt Busch fourth. Tony Stewart was fifth. We have Greg Biffle in sixth. Jamie McMurray was seventh. Matt Kenseth eighth. Kevin Harvick was ninth from the pole. And Martin Truex Jr. rounded out the top 10. Speaking of Martin Truex Jr., I think he would have a better finish. He was penalized on pit road for passing on the left. However, NASCAR Executive Vice President and Chief Racing Development Officer Steve O'Donnell said Martin Truex Jr. was penalized for passing on the left on pit road, a penalty rarely called in NASCAR. It is a clear rule in the book, and it's addressed at every driver's meeting. Now, I've seen drivers pass on the left to get to their spot. I've seen drivers go through 2 or 3 pit stalls to get to their spot and passing people on the left. But as Steve O'Donnell said in a Sirius XM interview, that there were a lot of complaints about that, so they've been watching, and they lowered the boom. It's like you go through that stop sign in your neighborhood every morning on your way to work, every morning for 3, 4, 5, 6 months. Finally, the neighbors are complaining, they're calling the police, and all of a sudden the police are going to sit at that corner and they nail you. You know what? Just hand them your stuff, take the ticket, pay the fine. Because you got away with it for how many times? Just be quiet. So, yeah, Martin Truex was penalized for that, and maybe he would have had a better finish. But no, NASCAR looks like they're starting to send messages. And speaking of Kansas, Tony Stewart made his 600th start Sunday at the Kentucky Speedway. Stewart ranks 24th on NASCAR's all-time starts list, 2 behind James Hilton, a competitor from the 70s. So that's what we got going on there. The Sprint Cup Series will be in New Hampshire, a double-header type of thing with the Xfinity Series, as well as the K&N Pro Series. East and West are involved, and the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour, and a handful of guys from the NASCAR Whelen Southern Modified Tour. Sprint Cup Series regular Ryan Newman will be in the Modified, from what I understand. He was in the All-Star race, so I'm sure he'll be driving in the race on Saturday as well. There used to be more guys from the Sprint Cup Series that hopped in modifieds for the races, and in the years to come, the recent years, it's only been really Ryan Newman. And I can remember then when there was a handful of them that hopped in cars, and Carl Edwards was one that I remember. And I remember Tony Stewart in one as well. And what is happening is, just like in other professional sports, these athletes are worth a lot of money to the teams. And I know when we were at New Smyrna one year, and Tony Stewart was supposed to drive a car owned by Eddie Whelan. And all of a sudden, Tony wasn't there because there was a clause that he couldn't drive those types of cars. Now that Tony Stewart works for himself, he works at Stewart Haas Racing, he owns Stewart Haas Racing, he'll drive whatever he wants. He's driving, sprint cars or whatever he wants to do. But, they always have one. And what that does, and I know why they do that, they're hoping to get more people. sell more tickets. Hey, let's watch this guy. And as Ryan knew, and I always chatted with him or hung out in his trailer anytime on a race. And I said to Ryan, I said, why is it you could take it into the corner deeper than any of the other guys here that race here regularly? And he said, because I'm going faster in a car with thinner tires. Now I'm in this thing, these tires twice as wide. So there's 4 of them. So that's 8 times more tire pads going through these corners. He goes, this is fun stuff. Ryan was a good guy. He's a good guy. And then, at that level, it's funny. He's at the in-between because the old guys from years ago, a lot of them are gone, but the old guys from years ago, they made themselves available to the fans. Because as Richard Petty put it, I wouldn't be racing if it wasn't for people. And then you had that little new group in the middle where, all right, they're going to do what they have to do. They're going to go to autograph sessions. And as they walk through the garage, they're not going to hide. They're going to walk fast and sign and walk and just sign and walk and sign and walk. And then there's the new breed, the young kids that are racing today who have decided that they don't need to deal with the fans. They don't remember where this sport. They weren't even born when the sport came up with. Their parents might not have even been born. And I know I had the opportunity at Dover to speak to a couple of drivers when I was walking around the garage, Ty Dillon being one of them. I have a lot of respect for that kid. He was brought up right. He's Richard Drizzle's grandson. He's grown up around racing. He knows how it's supposed to be. A.J. Allmendinger, spent some time talking to him. Brian Scott, spent some time talking to him. But again, those last 2 guys drive for Petty, and that's how Petty does it. And when a guy like Richard Petty, the sport needs a Richard Petty back driving again. Not Richard Petty, he's almost 80 years old. But they need a guy like Richard Petty. They need a guy who's going to come in and relate to the fans as a good guy. See, he was the good guy in his day. A lot of the other drivers didn't like him because he didn't share his money, his STP money. And then when everybody started to catch up with him, he wasn't as good as everybody else, and I mean financially. But you know what? He was an ambassador to our sport and a man that I'm proud to say that I've met and spoke to on many, many occasions. But when you look at it today, it's all different. And it's, corporate greed has stepped in, and if they're not making money, they don't want to do it. So anyway. But we're about to wrap up. So again, not doing anything this weekend, head up to New Hampshire. There's a full slate of racing. I believe practices and stuff starts on Wednesday. Then they got stuff Thursday, the All-Star thing on Friday. They got the K&N Pro Series, the Modifieds, Xfinity cars, and the Sprint Cup Series cars. It's a full weekend. And it's if you're up here in the Northeast and mid-central states, it's not a bad trip, and I'll tell you what, it's well worth it. I've been there so many times. But anyway, wherever your endeavors are going to bring you, I will be going with the Inravio staff to Bethel Motor Speedway, looking forward to it. And wherever your endeavors bring you, please be safe, please be careful. Give somebody a hug, tell them you love them, God bless you all, and we'll see you all next week. Good night, folks.